The Hollywood rock scene in the 80s wasn't just myth, gossip, or rumor.
Discovering of this groupie thing was like being a little kid in a candy store.
And the next thing I know, I literally lift up her dress and I just started fucking her.
There's a lot of stuff that went down in the Rainbow Bar and Grill. Where else can you have a steak dinner and pizza and get serviced underneath the table?
Extra long blow job? Love that. Love sucking cock.
Our best is strippers. The whole porn and rock thing, it was real.
It was a time when the world got turned on its head and loved it.
It was shocking for people to see a bunch of guys come out in kind of queer clothes and hair and makeup and, you know, be like rocking out.
Girls, rock your voice.
The impossible could happen, and it did.
And if you played and you packed the house and you could look good in high heels with lots of makeup on, you were gonna get a record deal.
It was about us having the audacity to dream.
If you had long hair, cool sense of fashion, some good eyeliner, you could pretty much have anything you want for free.
So you think I got a funny face? I got no worries, no.
It was about music.
It's a Mickey Ratt tone.
It was about sex.
They're right on supporting my cum load.
The bathtubs would be filled with either naked people or beer.
It was the ultimate sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Cocaine wasn't addictive, and you can still get an erection off cocaine.
I mean, the 80s, there was a lot of drugs.
I think the rainbow bathroom is still laden with cocaine from the 80s.
Women and drugs, man, that's the kiss of death to most rock bands.
You want to hang out with us, Bob, who works 9 to 5, Hey, here's the pussy, you supply the drugs.
It was more than just an era of music.
Watch out! I got a fever! And the only prescription is more cowbell!
It was more than just a time of stars.
That's because he's sold 20, 30, 40, 50 million records is why he is the way he is. No, he's always been like that.
It is all about hedonism. I mean, how much can you do? How long can you stay up? How many chicks can you have sex with? That was the whole thing. It was like a contest.
It was when the dreams of youth became the stuff of music legend.
When you got in, it was like sneaking into Disneyland.
The guys in Hollywood are fucking insane!
Hollywood rocks, the glam hair metal years.
Come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your voice.
How long do I have?
You got 10 minutes.
Hydroxycuts taken with Jack Daniels. That ought to make for a good show.
Janie Lane, the lead singer of Warrant, is about to take the stage at the 2003 Bad Boys of Metal tour.
All right, Janie, tear it up.
This is one of Janie's first performances in over a decade, since the height of Warrant's fame.
Where the down boys go. Woo!
We all sang it to each other. We went, right? E-D-A-E. Right. And then woo!
Janie waits anxiously for his cue to go on stage, not out of fear or insecurity about performance, but from the sock-it-to-them adrenaline high of once again being able to rock. Warrant was one of the last bands to reach prominence in the decade-long resurgence of glam, hair, metal music on Hollywood's Sunset Strip. For those years, the Strip was the center of the rock music world. Musicians came from everywhere for a chance to become rock stars, with all the sex, drugs, and money that came with it. The first wave of this new generation of hair metal rock bands, Great White, Ratt, and Quiet Riot, were just starting to form in the high schools, homes, and garages of Southern California in the early 70s.
I had messed around with guys who later turned out to be the Dickies, the guitar player in the Dickies stand. We had a little garage band. Another band that was on Mercury called The Quick. I played with those guys, but it was Quiet Riot was my first real band. I had not really intended to be singing professionally until I stumbled onto Randy Rhoads in 1975. And he had really long hair and a really long thumbnail, and he plugs a little Gibson SG into a little Fender Harbor practice amp. Little distortion box was so screwed up he had to kick it to make it work. And he just tunes up a little bit, turns up, and plays just like he played with Ozzy. All the great, first thing he played was that song that was later Suicide Solution. And then the riff that was basically Crazy Train. I was like this. I was just floored, because it was just, he was 17, I was 18, and he played just like he did on Blizzard of Oz. And he says, well, let me hear you sing now. I said, you're out of your mind. There's no way after hearing that.
Kevin Dubrow and Randy Rhoads formed Quiet Riot along with bassist Kelly Garney and drummer Drew Forsythe.
We used to play a club called the Starwood. It was the best club I've ever played, because they had multiple rooms, best looking women, at the time the best drugs. The whole thing was great. I mean, there was stuff going on in bathrooms, there was stuff going on out in front. I mean, it was awesome. That was our club. They used to have these Sunday night things where they have 3 unknown local bands to prove their draw, and then they would graduate to weeknights and then graduate to weekends opening for national acts. We opened for a band called Detective that was on Led Zeppelin's Swan Song label. That was our big breakthrough in LA, because the Led Zeppelin guys came and saw us and Detective that night.
Blues-based hard rockers Great White first came together with the meeting of vocalist Jack Russell and guitarist Mark Kendall.
Well, the times are getting hard for you, little girl. I'm a humming and a strumming all over God's world. You can't remember when you got your last meal, and you don't know just how a woman feels. You didn't know what rock and roll was until you met my drummer on that great tour bus. I got there in the nick of time before he got his hands across your state line, yeah.
Kendall and I were in rival bands in like 1977. He was in a crosstown band called Zizix, and I was in a little backyard band called Centaur. I remember that. So I get this call from a friend of mine. Hey, this guy Mark Kendall wants to talk to you. He goes, he's in a band called Zizix. I go, what? They're looking for a singer. I'm going, I heard those guys suck. You know what I mean? So he keeps calling me. I guess the guy gave him my number, so he calls me. Oh, I'm sick. I got the flu. You know, I'm not feeling good. Call me in 2 weeks. Calls me 2 weeks. Oh, I've got hemorrhoids. Or I had like excuse after excuse after excuse, right? So finally I said, look, I'm just gonna get this guy off my back, you know. So he calls me. I said, okay, whatever. I'll come down and audition. So I went down and checked out their band, this little house in El Monte or something like that. I wasn't really too impressed. They were playing the same cover stuff that we were playing at the time. I thought, you know, this is gonna go nowhere. He goes, hey, hang out, man. Let me take you in this room and play some of my original stuff. So I go, okay. So he brings in this other room. He starts playing this stuff he wrote. I'm going, that is just amazing. I go, look, dude, quit your band. We'll start a band together, you know. We got together in 1978. It was November. We first started our first rehearsal. So that was the very beginnings of the band. That was, I don't remember what we were called, Wires or something back then, or Highway or some ridiculous name. It became Great White in '82, actually. Best times to me were the times before the band made it. I mean, really, living in this little teeny house. Man, the cockroaches are so big they climb bed and throw a leg over you, you know? We're like eating mayonnaise sandwiches. I remember one time the band was so hungry, I went down to Palos Verdes, climbed down the cliffs down there, went snorkeling and got a bunch of abalone. And we ate like abalone for like a month, right? We were just like sick of this stuff, you know? Oh God, we were so broke, there was like never any toilet paper in the house. One day, you go in the bathroom, right, you take a shower, you know, you come out and your clothes are there and like there's always like a sock missing. I'm like, what the hell happened to my sock, you know? And this is going on for like a month, you know? I'm like, fuck are my socks going? You know, I had 2 here and I got 1. So I'm in the backyard one day for some reason. I end up behind the house, behind the bathroom window, and there's this big pile of socks with like skid marks on them, right? Come to find out, Kendall, he's like, look, there's no toilet paper. So he's picking up the guy's socks and wiping his butt with them and tossing it out the window. Couldn't believe it, man. I couldn't believe it. It was hysterical. Amazing time. You knew something was going to happen, but you weren't really sure what it was, but you knew it was going to be really cool. You know, like the LA scene was just crackling, man. I mean, you walked down Sunset Boulevard and you just felt this electricity, you know. It was like something's on the verge is really big here. You know, the Motley Crue pop, Great White, Ratt, Doc, and, you know, and the list goes on and on and on.
Ratt had formed from an earlier band with a similar name.
Out on the streets, that's where we'll meet. You make the night. I always cross the line, tighten the belts, abuse the sales.
Mickey Ratt, it was a band I started in 1977, San Diego, California. It was taken after a pornographic cartoon character, comic book. And right away we started doing original songs. Out of the Cellar I wrote in 1977. Real good song, hence, like I wasn't an Aerosmith fan. Come on, I played the Aerosmith songs in my band. I call my record Out of the Cellar. Ratt, Rat's in the Cellar, Aerosmith, rocks. Thank you. If it wasn't for you guys, there would be no Ratt, actually. You got... Early Mickey Ratt songs, Valley of the Euphrates, Out of the Cellar, Reach for the Sky, Invasion of Your Privacy, Dancing Undercover, all were songs. There's something I need, I'm not taking no chance. You party hard, rock and roll us, just don't end up like us.
As hair bands exploded on the Sunset Strip, fans found innumerable ways to express their enthusiasm and support for this new musical phenomenon.
My friend was playing drums in Dark Angel, so I made their stickers in print shop, and it kind of just led to a spiral of every band that was metal, Faster Pussycat, Jane's Addiction, LA Guns. They would come into my house. I would have the print shop in the back of the house, so they would come in the afternoon, pick up shirts, sometimes late at night, drop off artwork. I would turn them around within a few days. So everyone knew me back then as the sticker man.
Ratt, Quiet Riot, and Great White would be the inspiration for the next wave of Hollywood rock bands. LA Guns, Jet Boy, Faster Pussycat, Poison, and the band that would become the icon of the era, Guns N' Roses. Although its first recordings would be as Hollywood Rose, and its founding members, Axl Rose, Izzy Stradlin, and Chris Webber.
I first started playing guitar when I was like 9. My parents' friend was a guitar player that played in Steppenwolf. He brought me a guitar for my 9th birthday, Japanese Stratocaster. I went to Fairfax High, and Tracy Guns went to Fairfax High, and Slash went to Fairfax High, although I was a year younger than those two. I was friends with Tracy. I wasn't really friends with Slash at that time. I looked up to Tracy. He was a friend, but he was like the coolest guy. You know, surfing, he had a cool mom, good-looking girlfriend. He played great guitar.
He inspired me to get into a band. I mean, that's when he introduced me to Izzy, was basically him supporting the decision to jump into the ring of playing in Los Angeles. I owe him for that. That's a fantastic gift to give somebody.
Hollywood Rose would morph into Guns N' Roses via Tracy Guns and his band, LA Guns.
In 1982 or 83, I was going to school with this kid, Chris Weber, who had a really great guitar, the Charvel. We became friends, and he used to let me use that guitar for all my gigs and everything I was doing. And back then I was in the original incarnation of LA Guns, which was called Pyrrhus, Pyrrhus. I think Slash called us Piss Puss. All of us guys used to kind of get together at Laurel Elementary School, and we used to skateboard and ride bikes. Slash was always nuts. He would always have a half pint of Jack Daniels in his back pocket when we were 13. And he was always really artistic, and he was always doing really cool graffiti and writing poems and stuff like that. Steven Adler and Slash were best friends since we were all kids. Slash was really responsible for him playing music at all. I was probably 12 or 13 years old. I was in my mom's Volkswagen bus, and we were driving up Fairfax, and there used to be a little music school where Slash took guitar lessons. And Slash lived a 4 to 5 mile walk from there. And there was Slash and Adler walking down Fairfax, and Adler was carrying Slash's twin reverb amp, which they weigh 55, 75 pounds, And I go, Mom, you think they're walking all the way back there? And they did this once a week, man. He would fucking carry Slash's amp. One day, Slash plugs his amp in, and he fucking played it, the solo to Whole Lotta Love Today. Played it dead on. And I had already been playing for 6 years, and I knew a lot of shit, but I never learned that. And that was the reason I was playing guitar, was because of that solo. And he nailed it, and I was just like, fucking A, I better start practicing. This guy's fucking he's getting serious.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give your fucking ounces up for Mr. Steven Adler.
Bad boy drummer for Guns N' Roses, Adler lived the classic rock star lifestyle.
I think 11 years old, and there's this garage band down the street. I loved just being around the drums, just how it made noise and you could do it with your body. And it was just really cool. And I went over there and I heard them playing, and we were smoking pot, and I beer bombed 6 old English 800. They walked me home and knocked on my front door, and my mom was having a Tupperware party. And I threw up in front of all these old ladies and passed out on my bed. Me and Slash grew up together, went to junior high school together, and we just always wanted to do music. First time I recall walking onto Sunset, me and Slash, and we were walking by this club, the Starwood, on Santa Monica and Crescent Heights. And we looked in this big purple velvet, drapery, curtain, and there was a band in London, and it was Nicky Six. But I just remember seeing this guy with a black and white striped bass, and his leather everywhere, and his hair a foot up, and it just looked so cool. We were like, oh yeah. We saw that, and then that was it. We were sold. Nicky Six sold us on rock and roll.
Beaming in from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Poison would finally become a sound to be reckoned with when guitarist C.C. DeVille joined the band.
About 12 years old, I saved up and got my first guitar. Never took lessons, just liked to wear it. I started to play it at my own pace, at my own speed. The guitar became like a skateboard like a baseball glove, and just like I would play baseball with my friends, the guitar was also something that I would get a release from. I was bitten by the whole rock and roll bug lifestyle and everything, and then I moved to LA. Poison was already a big local draw. The guitar player went back to Philadelphia, so then they needed a guitar player, and there was a lot of auditions, and I won them over. I don't know how, but I won them over. There was a certain chemistry and a certain click right from the beginning when I joined the band. We were still in the warehouse. I mean, it was pretty rough, and we would rehearse there and live there. And you know, at that young age, you have your dreams, and the beautiful thing about when you're still dreaming is you haven't written your book yet. So everything is open, and the sky is the limit, and whatever you can think can become a possibility.
Glam punk band from San Francisco, Jet Boy, had the look and the sound.
Started the band in 1983. We met and had the same ideas of starting a rock and roll band, and I knew our drummer Ron Toston. He joined in, and then Fern actually knew our first bass player Todd Crew, and then Todd actually knew Nick. Came together pretty quick. Yeah, that would have been like '84. Started playing shows, and then we started coming back and forth to LA, playing shows. Got a lot of attention right away. We were loved by the press. We were a band that we got tons of magazines and magazine covers, and I think probably more people knew about us than even heard our music, you know. Yeah. We were well promoted that way. Because we were an image band, and image bands were big then. We always had a different crazy outfit and, you know, blue hair, you know.
Influenced by the dynamic musical and visual style of the rock and mid-'80s Hollywood bands, Warrant and all the other bands that followed would mix it to the extreme.
I was sitting at home and, you know, I was hearing bands come out like Wasp, Ratt, Motley, Too Fast for Love. Probably was the record that really made me say, I got to get out to LA and I got to be part of this. I always felt that I could do it, but I was scared shitless. I had no backup plan. I had a scholarship to Kent State University in musical theater, and my dad kicked me out of the house. We didn't speak for 3 years. It was a complete falling out with my family. My entire family is in medicine. And when I said I'm moving to LA to play rock, they were like, well, what the fuck are you doing with your life? So I had no safety net. There was no going back. I either had to do it or I was going to be indigent on the street in LA. And that was my game. I was just turning 20 and I moved to LA and I said, I'm going to find a band, and I stole the spot away from the original singer of Warrant. Until I met Bill Gazzari, nobody would let us in. And then Bill, he was a good fella. So then he talked to Mario, who owned the Rainbow and the Whiskey and all that, and the Roxy. And all of a sudden, you know, I was allowed in the clubs, and you know, there was always a beer waiting. So you had to get in with the good old boys. And my highlight of my career was we played Gazzari's. We broke Van Halen's attendance record.
Legend would have it that D-Malls was signed to a record deal 2 weeks after arriving in LA. But the truth was stranger than fiction for this band that wore makeup and women's lingerie.
Long-legged ladies looking for some action. That sounds pretty shady, but that's a typical reaction. Rock-a-bye, baby, now you got it coming.
1985, and then that's when DeMarles came out to LA. And when we arrived, it was as though college had begun. I mean, it was this one big giant campus of musicians who were all there for one reason, to basically get the big record deal. I mean, you had bleach blondes and jet black-haired rockers, tons of chicks hanging out in front of Gazzaris. It was like no other time in history. It wasn't Guns N' Roses, it was Jet Boy, because of the fact that they had parked in Los Angeles, a few months before everyone else did. So they were the hot band on the Strip. And then, others soon followed. And I remember this one guy, Ruben Blue, he had Rock City News. It was just like basically a 5-6 page rag. And Ruben didn't look far from a homeless guy at all. I mean, this guy just started off, and it was through his magazine that we learned about bands like LA Guns, Guns N' Roses, Faster Pussycat, Love Hate. And those bands had all just formed. And then you had the Rainbow. And, I'll bet without it, even though you had the Whiskey a Go-Go, the Troubadour, and the Roxy, there wouldn't have been no scene at all. The Rainbow Bar and Grill is where every rocker conducted their business at night. It's just like, it was incredible. Everyone would just get there and hang out in the parking lot. And every little small innocent chick from America who paraded through on weekends would just, give it up because they were on the Strip.
Class act Keel combined melody and hard rock to create a sound that wowed the fans.
I remember it was our first arena show at the LA Sports Arena, when after all this we'd been through to work our way up through the Strip, and finally we get on stage at the Sports Arena in LA, and there's a packed arena full of people. Now we're talking, baby, come on, bring it on. That's what, that to me, that's the best LA show I ever did. It was my first time ever on stage in an arena.
When I moved here, people were just telling me I just looked like somebody else, and I didn't want to look like somebody else. I wanted people to say, you look like Mark Ferrari. So the blonde streak was just a silly idea. I don't even know how it came to me, but it just did. And I'm not the first guy that had a blonde streak. I took it from Joe Perry, who took it from Keith Richards, who took it from Jimi Hendrix, But, I just wanted to, I didn't want to look like those guys. As much as I liked those guys and hung out with them, I didn't want to be, I didn't want to be in a police lineup with them, so.
Odin's cult act status has a special place in the metal rock scene.
The morning wakes me, and I turn to find a glowing woman next to my mind. She slowly takes me into her heart and softly whispers, "One more!" Until my final day.
I met Aaron when I was when we were in 8th grade, and I had a band with my brother, who was the drummer for Odin, and we ended up just becoming friends, and then going to his house after school and playing Black Sabbath and AC/DC songs. And the only bands I can remember liking was I loved Wasp, and I really liked Armored Saint. Wasp used to do these gigs where they would have a rack with a girl on it, like he'd have a hood, and he'd come up with like this Morning Star, and he'd like bonk her in the head, and she'd bite a blood pellet, and then his blood would come down. See, back in those days, it was totally a show. I think it was, me and Aaron going to those early Motley Crue gigs that really
made us say, we got to be a cool band. We got to be a real band, you know, because they definitely knew what they were doing on stage. They looked great. So
they put on a show.
Yeah, that was where
it wasn't just music. It was a show.
Yeah, that was I think where we were like, okay, this is what's happening now. This is what we got to do, and that's what we went ahead and did. Once we started playing with the singer, with Randy, there was a chemistry going on between the four of us, and that's what became Odin That People Know.
Tough would be a hair band with pin-up status, originating in Arizona but coming together on the Sunset Strip when vocalist Stevie Rochelle joined the group.
The band was formed by Todd Chason and George DeSaint. They were looking for a singer, and Todd, George, and Michael made a flyer, which was a picture of Todd, a picture of George, a picture of Michael, and a blank box. And it said, wanted lead singer. So I got the flyer on a Friday. On Monday, I bought a one-way plane ticket from Chicago to LA. I didn't have the money that day, so I went to a quick loan place, and I got a $200 loan. I went and bought the ticket, and on Thursday, my friend Sam drove me to Chicago O'Hare Airport. I got on a plane and flew here. I called this rehearsal studio and I said, tell the band I'm in town, I want to meet them, my name is Steve, here's my phone number. And a couple of days later, they called me. And I remember the first thing Michael said, he was like, what do you look like? I was like, Bret Michaels. He goes, where do you live? We're coming over. Because at that time it was so important how cool you looked. And they came over and they met me and I played on my tape and they played me theirs. And they said, how about if we rehearse next Wednesday or Thursday and learn these songs? And did rehearsal. They told me I was the singer like a couple days later, and we opened up for Warrant a month later, and we exploded.
Society's come all undone. Now we just wanna nuke the sun.
Spiders and Snakes, a glam band that pays special homage to the metal sound of the 70s.
We're going away, blowing away. It's anarchy in the USA. Did you ever wonder why we live beneath these blackened skies? While this democracy perpetuates hypocrisy. Well, I think I know just why. On city streets,
I joined his band London back in 1988.
I met Timmy. He's like, hey, I'm going to join London. I'm going to play drums for you. I said, that's too bad. I'm leaving. I started a band called Ultra Pop in '88, and then Tim had parted ways with London. So in 1990, he joined Ultra Pop, and we changed the name to Spiders and Snakes because of his massive heavy metal influence on me.
It was Lizzie's idea to change the name to Spiders and Snakes after an old Jim Stafford song. You know, I don't like spiders and snakes.
It stuck. It made sense for what the band's about.
Rainforest disappears and fills our TV
built a giant stage for the first Spiders and Snakes show. These green reptile eyes that like lit up and breathed fire and all this stuff.
Image-wise, we have fun with it. We have long hair because it's fun. We wear crazy makeup on stage because it's fun.
It was like a circus. It was almost a carnival atmosphere. From the pyrotechnics to the fog. We had dancers at one time. Multiple dancers, 3, 4, 5 on stage sometimes.
We've used all kinds of creative ways of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. What would normally happen is we get strippers who are just like, maybe, you know, they have a day off, and so to them, being naked on stage is no big deal. And it's a big deal to us. We like it. There's no real rules with our shows. And so we would get people drawn to the band because of our fun kind of mentality, which was that anything can happen, anything goes with both the music, the way we play the music, the way we approach the music, and that's how it's been with the various stage performances we've had.
Affectionately dubbed the French Terror, XYZ struck the right chord with fans in the US and Europe.
I was born the son of a French mother and a Spanish dad. I grew up in Paris and Barcelona in Spain. I came here to Los Angeles when I was 20 years old. At the time I didn't speak English at all. All I could speak was Spanish or French. The only thing I knew how to do was construction. So 5 o'clock in the morning, you wake up, you go on the site, you work till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You take a quick nap from 3 to 3:30. Then we get ready to rehearsal. I remember this bass player named Pat Fontaine, whom I knew from Europe. And I knew that Pat was in Los Angeles and he was looking for a singer. And we hooked up. Him and I formed a band called XYZ. And it takes a lot of determination. You have to have something inside that just, oh my God, that Mike Tyson look. You have to just go for it. There's no other way.
Blackboard Jungle was one of the last great hair bands of the 80s. They peaked just as the scene was ending.
Paint your face a new day and I see you to the door. Then we wave goodbye, another pleasant day is born. Some breeze into our room and down upon our eyes. Wake up to the sound of our life.
I met Kenny when I was like 14 and he was 16, 17. Yep. In New Jersey, and we decided, we played New Jersey, little kid bands, and we decided we were going to move out here and become Guns N' Roses. Growing up in New Jersey, we got into cooler lyrics, like we were inspired by Bruce Springsteen's lyrics, but like Motley Crue's music, so it was a melting pot of that. In 1988, we moved out and put together a band called Filthy Ritz.
We lasted about 6 months, and then half the band went to go play with Andy McCoy from Hanoi Rocks, and I went back to New Jersey to work in a record store. And then, I don't know, about 2 months later, for some reason we all got back together. We put together Blackboard Jungle. We came up through the Hollywood scene and we started playing shows. About that time we started to really build a good buzz in Hollywood, and we started to play the Troubadour regularly and started to pack in some people, and we started getting a good little buzz. We had our own little clique going.
Our fans were our friends, and everybody kind of hung out. It wasn't like a real internal thing. It was somewhere everybody belonged. Everybody knew every word. The songs were about moving to California, which 90% of the people had done. And every song had a lyric of a girl, or girl, guy, people we knew, so it was pretty cool.
For a handful of years, these bands exploded on the world music rock scene. But the band that would become the symbol of rock and roll stardom had a long, slow development and would be directly influenced by some of the great musical talents of the time. The story of this incredible band begins with the meeting of Chris Webber and Izzy Stradlin.
First time I actually played guitar with Izzy, he was sort of just learning, and because of that, his style was really sort of raw, and he had all this great stuff to him, like a lot of character. Even though it wasn't his profession, it had all this great Johnny Thunders is and Ramones, and it was something that I hadn't been exploring. It was really exciting when he started to play that stuff. You know, we started talking about who's going to be in the band, and he said, well, I think this friend just came out from Indiana. And I said, okay, great, let's go meet him. Went to the guy's door, the guy wasn't there. Izzy said, well, no, let's check the roof. So we went up to the roof, and there was on this just tar roof, just burning hot that day. It must have been 120 degrees on the roof. Right in the corner there was this towel laying right on the tar was this guy, this really white skin, really red hair, really skinny. And that was Axel. This is Chris, he's gonna be the guitar player, we're gonna do this. And Axel was just like, all right, let's do it, you know? And that was it. He sang low, he was like a baritone. Like very early on, did some like falsetto stuff or some of the higher pitched Axel, you know, stuff. And we heard it and we just went, God, that's it. Don't sing like anything else. All the songs seem just like this. We planned out image for the band. Izzy wanted to tailor everything.
Izzy did hang out a lot with Evelyn, Nikki Sixx's girlfriend, who was a fashion model, and you know, I know that they got a lot of makeup tips from her, and she did their hair and things a few times because they lived in the same apartment building.
The name of the band originally, like in the very, very beginning, was AXL. And that's how it was pronounced, AXL. Izzy had spray painted AXL on a billboard in Hollywood one night. And we took a photo of us three in front of it with a billboard in the background with it says AXL on it. So that was definitely the first name of the band. There was some argument or something, and then Axel just threw up his hands and said, I quit, I'm not gonna do this or whatever. And then like a day later he came back and he said, okay, whatever, let's continue. And Izzy said, look, we're gonna continue with this band, we gotta change the name. And that was the requirement to get everybody back together. And Axel said, sure. We were playing under the name Rose for a little bit, and we found out that there was another band called Rose. So we changed our name to Hollywood Rose. And that's how that name came about.
The first time I met the Hollywood Rose guys, I met Axel and Izzy. I get this call from Axel, and he said, you know, I was referred to you, and I'm going to be the biggest band in Hollywood. I was like, well, that's really good, Axel. What's the name of your band? And he said, Hollywood Rose. And I said, well, can't you just like send me a demo so I can check it out? And he's like, well, can't I just bring it to you and play it for you right now? And I'm like, well, no. And he's like, why not? And I'm like, well, for starters, I don't have a stereo here. He's like, oh, that's okay, I'll bring my ghetto blaster. And at that point, I was like wearing down on excuses not to let him come. So I was like, all right, what the hell, come on down. So he and Izzy came down with a ghetto blaster and a few photographs and played me this demo. And it was really remarkable. I mean, they had something that the other bands didn't have. Even though the Hollywood Rose demo was very unpolished, it was superior to, I'd say, 98% of the things on the strip. And I mean, that voice. Axl Rose had like the purest, cleanest, rockinest voice out there, you know. Even, you know, pre-Slash on guitar was like Chris and Izzy, like had this really layered guitar sound. Sight unseen, I put them on that show at the Music Machine. At the Music Machine, Hollywood Rose opened the show, and it was pretty dead, to be honest with you. There weren't a lot of bodies in the room, probably like 20 people. But Black Sheep played after them, and that's when Slash first saw Hollywood Rose, and he was pretty knocked out by it. And I introduced him to Axl that night, so that was kind of the beginning of Guns N' Roses.
Izzy and Chris Webber were playing together, and I had LA Guns, and the first time I actually saw them play is we all played together. At soundcheck that day when Hollywood Rose was setting their equipment up and Axl walked up to the mic and went, "Wah!" I was like, holy fuck, man. Did that just come out of that kid? Whether that sound was a good sound or a bad sound, I didn't know. I just knew that I really liked it. You know, I was like, fuck, you know, that's the coolest thing I ever heard come out of somebody's mouth.
The Troubadour was, that started everything. They would put small bands like ours on with big bands at the time. We played there with Wasp loads of times when Wasp had 1,000 people in there, and then there was blood being splattered from the, you know, upside down girls on crosses with the hoods and throwing meat at the audience. That was like us opening up for them. It was a fantastic place. I remember Axl got into a fight. Somebody hit him. His contact shot off into the street. Axl's looking for his contact. I'm trying to hold the guy back so Axl can find his contact.
Essentially the last show that we played, something happened and Axl we got in an argument. And that was sort of it. Not to play together anymore. And then that was the last show I ever played.
And then that's when Axl was in LA Guns and we did Guns N' Roses. My mom worked at night. She was a card dealer, and she came home, and I had two, nasty chicks in my bed. And she goes, "First of all, who are these whores, and who's the naked boy on the couch?" "That's Axl." "Is he nice?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's really nice." "Well, why is he naked?" I go, "Because I think he only has one set of clothes," and So he was a naked boy on the couch for a long time.
Slash actually made the artwork for the first Guns N' Roses logo, so I made shirts, I think, turned them around in about a week. Guns N' Roses didn't have any money, so I had to front the shirts most of the time, sell them at the shows, and give them a percentage of what I sold.
Our songs were good. Izzy was writing fucking amazing lyrics. Axl was writing amazing lyrics. We were like really getting more into like the Johnny Thunders, Aerosmith, mixed with the Ozzy and the Motley Crue. And what had happened was Axl like calls me and goes, "Hey man, really early in the morning, make sure that Michelle Young's on the guest list." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, man, no problem." We get there at like noon. load our gear in, we're jamming. Somebody comes up to me and goes, man, you know some guy named Axel, he's fucking screaming and yelling. So I walk up there, and Axel's like, Michelle's fucking name's not on the guest list. So Axel went off on me because it was my responsibility to make sure Michelle Young was on the guest list. I don't know what ended up happening, but I was pissed off. Izzy and Axel were pissed off at me.
With Tracy's departure, Axel, Izzy, and Duff were joined by Slash and Steven Adler to become, in the eyes of the fans, the ultimate Guns N' Roses lineup. Their first recordings would send shockwaves through the rock community.
There was an incredible excitement in the air about Guns N' Roses because people were just starting, little pockets of people were just starting to hear the band. I had Welcome to the Jungle on my answering machine. Then I got a voice over my answering machine at 4 in the morning saying, learn the song on your answering machine. Half an hour later, it was Doug Goldstein, the manager. Said, Steven has broken his arm, can you be in Minneapolis this morning? And I said, sure, and he goes, good, there's a flight for you at 7:30 a.m., be on it. I met Steven Adler, and we became friends first, and then I met the rest of the guys in the band. Axel showed up the first show that I was supposed to play 10 minutes before showtime, and I didn't know if we were going to go on or not, and he showed up, went right on stage, and just slammed. He was amazing. I didn't care if I was behind the drums or if I was out in the crowd. I could have been either place and I would have felt the same. It was unbelievable. We were at a really nice hotel. There was a wedding party going on, and someone said something to Axel and just got up in Axel's face, and somebody cracked somebody, and it was on. The next thing I know is there's 6 cops trying to jump on Axel. And the last thing I saw was him going out the door with 6 cops around him going, call Doug, which was the tour manager. And Axel came out of it with, no charges. I think they just wanted to say, hey dude, I got married and got in a fight with Axl Rose.
All right, here we are with Axl Rose at Exposure 54. Axel, how you doing, bud?
Doing great, man.
How's the album doing?
We start the album in about a week or so, and we got a new track coming out in about 3 weeks.
Yeah,
we should be on benefit album with Elton John and Eric Clapton and the Wilburys and stuff.
Oh, great. Yeah, so you like the girls here, the action? Did you guys ever play in Exposure?
No, we haven't played here yet. It's I really like the club, and it's neat seeing something this wild and this big in Hollywood. All the neon lights and everything. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
You had how'd you like that band, Jamie St. James? What's his?
That was pretty cool. I didn't see much of it. This is my first night being in a club married.
Yeah. Oh wow. And Gene Simmons was here.
Yeah. Well, we don't get along so well.
Oh wow. Wow. So great to see. What's the name of your new album coming out?
It might be called Use Your Illusion. We're talking with an artist named Kostabi because I bought a painting, and we want to use this as a possible cover, and the title of the painting is Use Your Illusion, and that's what we may use. I wrote a song the night before that said something, I bought me an illusion and put it on a wall. The next day I found a painting called Use Your Illusion, and put it on.
Guns N' Roses is the most enduring rock band of the era. Years after its explosion on the world music scene, fans still wait anxiously for its next musical release. Despite critical naysayers, the continual replacement of all band members, except for perhaps the key ingredient, Axl, Guns N' Roses remains a hugely popular band. And Axl, who in the eyes of the fans is Guns N' Roses, for a rock musician, has done the impossible by fostering great creative relationships with his fellow artists and the loves of his life.
Yeah, I want to introduce you to my wife, Erin.
Hello.
And Victor Everly Rose.
Hello.
Axl has had many triumphs and successes, and to this day, the world waits eagerly for the next Guns N' Roses album, knowing that without a doubt, when it arrives, it will reinvent the sound of rock and roll, and once and for all prove that GNR is king. Getting signed by a record company was the first step on the road to rock stardom. But for a record company to notice, the band had to pack the clubs. To attract fans, bands developed and perfected two methods: flyers and multiple girlfriends.
Flyer thing was huge. That's how you got people to come to your shows. You know, nobody knew you. You passed out flyers, or put them on telephone poles. We used to drive down Santa Monica with our posters and nail them up over 10,000 other posters. And we'd go out at night like flyering lockers at high schools, hopping the fences, sticking flyers in lockers, and flyering cars. I mean, come see Dante Fox. It wasn't even great white at that time. Play at the Woodstock Theater, you know, in Anaheim. You know, remember we got busted one night at this high school, and this janitor's got us. He goes, "You come with me." And we're like, "Well, okay, let's just go and have some fun," you know. And he takes us in the office. He goes, "Okay, what's your name?" I'm all, "Robert Plant." And we start giggling. He goes, "What's your name?" "Jimmy Page." So he thinks he doesn't even have a clue where to give the names for Led Zeppelin, you know. He goes, "What's your phone numbers?" "I'm going to call your parents." I'm going to call my parents. I'm like 20 years old, pal, you know. It was just laughable, man. But we used to do that all the time.
My family had a print shop that they had just bought, so we always had an advantage. Every time we had a show, whether it was at the Roxy or the Whiskey or the Troubadour, I'd go to my mom, and my mom would be like, you know, and she would charge, she'd put it on an account, and, you know, we would pay, but she'd be very relaxed. She'd be very lax about the conditions and the way we would pay her back and stuff. And we would just flyer all of Hollywood to the point where it was overkill.
Poison was probably the hardest working band that I've ever worked with as far as promoting. They had the promotion machine down. It's like they would go out on like a Thursday night so that the posters would be up fresh for the weekend, and there'd be like a 5-man crew. They would be like, you know, they'd get their glue paste in their big bucket, and they had the posters laid out, and then one guy would be stirring the glue, the other one would be like putting it on a thing to go like this, and then they would run down the strip like with the door open on the van, and the guy would like jump out of the truck and put it on and get back in the truck as it's moving. It was just like completely crazy.
Before we made it, we were so hard up for a record deal. In 1979, the last year Randy Rhoads was in the band, we actually rented 2 flatbed trucks, and we got a bunch of our fans to go around to all the record labels with signs and picketed saying "Signed Quite Right." We got a bunch of news coverage, and it was like, you know, it was like funny, but it didn't really do anything. It made us look desperate, which we were, but we wanted a deal, you know. I mean, all the flyers in the world wouldn't work. We had one of the best guitar players in rock and roll history. Nobody would bite at it. So I mean, what does that tell you? I mean, even if I sucked the worst vocals of all time, we had Randy Rhoads.
We did everything. We created guerrilla warfare on the street. I mean, we had 1,000 people on our mailing list 3 years before we were signed, and they would go out in the rain and the freezing cold and flyer an Aerosmith concert for us 2 weeks before we played the Troubadour.
Actually, the Rainbow Bar and Grill, they had a half a dozen mini billboards that faced from the Roxy inside the Rainbow Bar and Grill parking lot. And we had shot this poster in Chicago, and it was really bizarre. I mean, we had the women's lingerie on and everything like that, and they blew the poster up and put it on one of those billboards. And we secured a billboard before, like a month or so before we even landed in LA. And it was so bizarre that we were dressed in women's lingerie.
Fishnet stockings, looking for some action. French lip locking, no guaranteed satisfaction. To the stand by, can't help yourself a honey, but you sure know how to make money. Hey, sing,
just simply blew a lot of minds away because no one had seen a similar version to the New York Dolls from the 70s. I mean, Poison had makeup, but you know, we had makeup and garter belts. So when we actually arrived in LA, you know, that lone billboard ad alone kicked in so much pre-buzz on the band that our first gig was at Gazzari's, and it was a sellout.
I remember one night we went out and we flyered everywhere, Highland, Hollywood, Melrose, Sunset, just from end to end, miles and miles and miles. And we're driving home and every poll we just did says Taz, T-A-Z, every flyer. And I'm like, you're kidding, right? Like we're driving down the street and we're going, dude, what the fuck? We just did this. And we're driving around and we're like going, we literally like, go back down that street. Did we hit that? If we hit 30 there and put one piece here, every square inch of every one of our flyers was covered. Taz had covered them. And we pulled up and we're standing there and all of a sudden we looked and there was a van parked in a parking lot. And I noticed, I think it was Taz's sound man. I kind of gave him kind of one of these looks and all of a sudden the door opens up and KK, the singer, and I think Ethan, the guitar player, and like one of their roadies all jump out and they're like, you got a fucking problem. Dude, you covered our shit like fucking 2 months ago. You made sure every one of our flyers was covered at the Cahuenga Pass. We had flyers that were there forever, and you guys went out of your way to make sure that every square inch of our shit was covered. You know, we didn't come to blows, but it was a flyer war.
I was putting up a Spiders and Snakes poster up on the Sunset Strip in front of Tower Records, and David Lee Roth was driving by in his big Mercedes at the time, and I was putting the poster, trying to not put it over someone else's flyer, so it was I was kind of putting it down low. So he pulled his Mercedes over, and he jumps out of the car, he goes, hey man, no one's gonna see it down there, and he helped me put up a poster.
We had a few cool flyer things where we actually handed out parking tickets and were made from, and we put them on cars and we would flyer with that. We did
summonses.
We subpoenaed, and Mom showed up with her daughters to the Troubadour. We did subpoenas, and
Parents
then
calling up going, why the hell does my kid have to be at the whiskey at 9 o'clock?
And then everybody would always say, we're pretty much nice guys, and everybody says, it's cool that there's no dicks, so you guys aren't a dick, there's no dicks in this band. So we did a flyer, we tucked our genitals between our legs, took a picture, and it said there's no dicks in this band. So while everybody else had their flyers of them looking sexy and stuff, we looked...
We're like Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
If you packed the clubs and made enough noise, the dotted line would appear.
It really happened so fast that by the time we put the band together, did Lay Down the Law, got signed, and then the following spring we were on tour, and then the party just shifted into high gear at that time.
Our record label offer from Elektra, they kind of followed us and watched us for a while and then decided to sign us. We recorded our first album for them, and then right before it was scheduled for release, the record label had problems that like fired the whole West Coast offices.
Yeah,
so
political.
We got shelved, and then we got picked up by MCA right away. However, it took a year or so to work out the contracts, and they wanted us to record a new record, and we were like, we just recorded our first record as a band, you know. So they agreed to release that one, and we toured all over the U.S., went to Japan, played in Puerto Rico, supporting that record. We had the MCA deal.
Really what
our record
happened.
was out. Sony Music came along and bought MCA as a company. You show up at the record company one day and there's empty desks, and a week later they're filled with all new people, and You know, so once again, we were shelved and not given a chance. At that time, when our second record came out, it had only been out for 3 months. We were selling good units. We had our video on MTV. We were touring. We had another tour booked after the tour we were on. And so they just pulled the plug, and that was that.
Yeah,
We don't got a record company.
It's all down to political and money, you know.
By the time we got signed by Sony, if we were toothpaste, they could have sold us. I was so frustrated at that point. I thought it wasn't going to happen. I mean, we're opening for bands like Hurricane and Stryper, and they're bringing us in because we draw 1,000 people. We were probably signed a week before we were ready to move back. You know, we watch bands like Faster Pussycat and LA Guns, and, you know, a lot of other bands get signed, and we're sitting there going, what the fuck are we doing wrong? And finally, we got signed to Columbia, and I was very happy.
I sent a demo to all the labels, of course, and they all said no. And my friend Pino was riding a motorcycle, and he lost a glove. And behind him, a girl was in a car, and she honked at him and picked up the glove. Now, you have to realize that Pino is Italian, really good-looking guy. She wanted to flirt with him, so he's asked her, you know, what do you do for a living? And she said, oh, I work for a record company called Enigma Records. And so he called me right away. He's like, Derry, you know, I know this girl, you know, she works for a record company, Enigma Records. And so I said to him, sleep with her, you know, and at the same time, play her a demo. So he did. She loved the music. I'm sure she loved him as much. And she gave us a call the following day. It must have been really good. And 3 days later, we get an offer. And they gave us so much money, I could not believe it. I said, wow, thank you, Pino.
The fans were not only the band's ticket to success, they were also its lifeblood.
The chicks who were in the bands, it was awesome. Girls would come backstage, and they would come and they'd be looking for action. We're not really a pretty boy band, and we didn't do any ballads, so we didn't get really as much as like much chicks as saying like a Motley Crue or a War. I mean, these guys had that area pretty much, you know, monopolized. You know, girls were very generous to me with their time and money.
It's a very competitive thing being a groupie. You have to be able to have the balls and the moxie, if you will, to walk up to somebody and point blank say, hey, do you want a blowjob? You have to remember, these guys have just come off stage. You know, every chick in the audience wants to fuck them. And they pretty much want to fuck every chick in the audience, but granted, they can usually only pick 1, 2, possibly 3 in one night. So, you know, the idea is to try to be the first one. I can remember that Eric Turner from Warrant, and we came to talking about condoms, and I said, yeah, but, you know, doesn't it suck when you use a condom and you come, and then it kind of goes back up? You know, it feels kind of like just getting a blowjob, really. You know, wouldn't you just be better off getting a blowjob and fuck the condom? And he's like, well, I don't know. And I said, well, let's go up to the bathroom and we'll test the theory. That it was just me and Eric in the bathroom, then somebody else came in, and then somebody else came in, and all of a sudden I realized that I was on the train, and I mean, I was the train. And I think I ended up back at the house, and I think I did the entire band.
We'd end up at parties, and the bathtubs would be filled with either naked people or beer. There was lots of drugs everywhere. People were having sex all over the place. It was good. It was like being in a big toy store.
They had an after party at the Tropicana Hotel, which isn't there anymore. It was on Santa Monica and La Cienega. I was probably, 15. They had like one room, 20 people in the room. And here comes Tommy out of the bathroom with his dick around his wrist, you know, going, anybody need to know what time it is, man? Anybody need to know what time it is? And just, there was like naked chicks and stuff. That was the first time I had ever seen that, you know, just like walk in a hotel room, naked chicks, people getting drunk, throwing up.
It became more of a firestorm with pussy when you're at the level that Tough was at one point. I remember we did a show at the Troubadour. I met a girl, and she came up to me. She was absolutely beautiful, like the prettiest girl I'd seen, and she told me she was from Alaska. We were literally talking, and there was definitely some magic because we had met and talked for 10 minutes, and I went in the back behind Dan Tana's restaurant, Italian restaurant next door to the Troubadour, and there's minimal parking back there to anybody who knows. There's valet going back and forth, and her and I literally went behind the Troubadour and behind Dan Tana's next to a dumpster and started making out, and I was like touchy-feely, and the next thing I know, I literally lift up her dress and I just started fucking her. And I was fucking this girl against the dumpster, and there's these Mexican guys running around with keys and little tags and white shirts, like pulling out cars and Ferraris out to Dan Tana's restaurant. And I remember like taking in the moment and thinking, this is unbelievable. You know, I used to work at a Mr. Donut in Wisconsin, playing in a cover band, playing Red Hot and Breaking the Law. And now it's months later, I'm in Hollywood, California. I'm in one of the biggest bands out here. We're being touted by record labels. And I'm fucking super hot chicks from all over the place, you know, in 5 minutes of meeting them.
I like to think of the rhythm section as exactly that. It's the rhythm section. So your drummer and your bass player and your rhythm guitar player, they keep that beat, they keep it strong, they keep it going, they don't stop until the song's over, right? Lead singers, they need constant attention. Lead guitarists, you're always vying for attention from a fucking guitar. You know, when you're at home with them, it's just like you're walking around naked and you're all, you know, sticking cucumbers up your ass or something, and they're like, oh, listen to this riff. But for the most part, bass players will put down their bass and, you know, it's 4 strings, it'll be there later.
What a dildo that is.
Speak all you want, love.
About what?
About your life in general.
She normally does the interviews for you
About the
guys.
band. What's up and coming?
So who normally does the interviews for real?
What is up and coming in
Really?
your band, okay?
What is up and coming?
Yes, up and coming.
I am, since I saw you at top. What am I, a coach back
That's
here?
good. That's good. That's good. Keep on going, baby. We're doing good now.
Okay, ask me a question and I'll answer.
Okay.
Thank God for editing.
Okay.
How many women have you fucked on roofs?
Yes. How many women have you fucked on roofs lately? To the camera, please.
Well, answer that.
That's a tough question.
Okay, how many women have you fucked not on roofs? I don't know.
They were just always there. It's like bees around honey. Pulling over in Oklahoma City and everybody having to get, we got a giant bottle of A200 for everybody to get rid of the crabs. Everybody got a shot of penicillin in the ass, and they had to fumigate the fucking bus because it was like 6 girls a day.
Never.
Never?
This first time.
Well, you've obviously
you and I,
missed your
baby,
calling.
First time. Let's do that. Yeah, there you go.
Because I might get a little too choked up, you know?
You don't want to get choked up. You want to get choked
No,
out.
really. Milk does a body good. No, I'm serious. But aside from that, I don't know. What are the dimensions of this girl's nipples? I have no idea.
You want to see?
Hanging out with Izzy was like really the beginning of just like being with a lot of girls all the time. That was the beginning of our exposure to this revolving door of women and all your friends sleeping with all the girls you liked. Like crazy, crazy circles of people like going from one person to the next and nobody ever settling down with anybody.
Here we are in our little house. Hey, just house of horrors.
We all would hang out, shared a lot of the same groupies, and and nobody cared. And we were like, oh, you did that? Oh, you did that? Oh, I did that too.
We were known to be the French nightmare, and that's the truth. Thank you very much. For us, coming from Europe and discovering all this groupie thing was like being a little kid in a candy store, and somebody just opened up the candy store and said, just eat whatever you want. We had so much fun. It was actually beyond having fun. I have beyond my wildest dreams. Everybody had groupies, they were all around us. They were so nice and beautiful, and they helped the bands, they supported the bands, they fed us. The truth about groupies is they like a genre of music, so we have to respect that. Most of them actually helped us a lot. One of them bought me a car, a beautiful convertible, trips to Europe, back and forth. We should really thank him, actually.
Well, I see him on the TV. He preach about the promised land.
Poison had an apartment on Orange Drive down off of Hollywood Boulevard by Mann's Chinese Theater. And they had on their wall a list of industry people and a list of girls. And when the girls would call up, they either had to bring a bag of groceries or promise to clean. Otherwise, they were not allowed to enter the apartment.
We had no money, none of us had jobs, and usually a couple girls or some guys and their mother would come in with groceries of hot dogs and chips and milk, like shopping carts for shopping. And we'd go into the warehouse and put everything in the refrigerator, and we literally would live from week to week like that, just on the love like that. So there was a scene, it was a social scene. But it wasn't about that. It was about us having the audacity to dream. And the fans of our band, be it young girls or young guys that wanted to play guitar, and talking their parents into saying, this band wants to make it. I love this band, and someday I want to make it. And if I can just see that a dream can come true and be part of the band being successful, then all of a sudden you're like, wow, it's great to have that positive outlook, especially as a young kid.
It would just figure. It would just figure.
The music created was personal, introspective, and raw. These unfiltered emotions connected and energized the audience.
The big labels are saying, we have to have this because the amount of money we're putting into it, it has to work. So we want this to be the song. Write that. Where back then, whatever you did was the personality of the band, and it really came from the heart. I think people had a lot more freedom to do what they wanted.
Just for the record, listen, get the story straight. Me and Uncle Tom were fishing, it was getting pretty late. Out on the south, still my brother wishing well. The sea it got no bottom, see it take you down a hill. Over in the bushes, heading out to the right. The two men talking, hear the pale moonlight. Sheriff, young lady, and deputy head. All the two limp bodies down to the water's edge. Love singer down in Uncle Tom's cabin. Oh yeah.
You know, we had the cheese ball songs like Cherry Pie and all that kind of stuff, but we also had some substance with Rainmaker and Uncle Tom's Cabin and Dog Eat Dog, the third record we did, which I poured my heart out on. I mean, I can't tell you how much effort I put into that record, and unfortunately that was the breaking point for Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and Seattle came along, but I'm very proud of that record, and I think there was just enough substance behind Warrant that, you know, not every guy in the world hated us.
There's a lot of conflict. The country's kind of torn in half, and I think a lot of kids are going, you know, what's going to happen, you know, and everybody's worried about what's going to happen next. And when you can just like pound a beer and slam a guitar through a Marshall and just hear a grinding A chord that just sounds awesome and just get into the scene of that whole rock and roll, I mean, what a release. I mean, I think Kiss said it best, God gave rock and roll to you. It's a catharsis. We're releasing this energy, and the audience is absorbing this very positive energy. It's about have fun, turn it up loud, and don't go to jail.
When we recorded our second record, Damnation, for MCA, our first single was a song called Evil, and in the video, it was a great video, but it was like MTV thought it was kind of dark and scary, and specifically that I was kind of dark and scary because I had this mohawk. At the end of the video, we have this sexy model girl, and there's a snake climbing on her and a spider crawling across her, and they were like, oh, I don't know about daytime, you know, and then it's like a few years later you have like Marilyn Manson and all this crazy stuff erupting, you know, but at the time it was a little extreme, I guess.
With success came unchecked quantities of drugs. To some, it was a fringe benefit. To others, it was the spiral to oblivion.
We went out in front of the tour buses, snorted the lines on the street. Quiet Riot, and myself in particular, myself and Frankie Vanelli, were greatly responsible for the economic support of Colombia and Peru for many, many years. When I first started doing blow, I could get an erection, we call it blue steel, it would stay up for hours, and eventually, after it caused your whole brain chemistry to change, it turned into what we refer to as Gilligan's Island dick.
Gilligan's Island dick.
Hey, little buddy.
Very few musicians that I knew bought drugs because we were so damn broke. I mean, but believe me, there was no shortage of them or free handouts. I mean, if your band was cool and chicks were around, you know, for sure a working class guy who worked a 9-to-5 job at like some financial institution during the day, you know, he would definitely be in your circle at night and nudge his way into by means of supplying free drugs. Because let's face it, every working stiff wanted a cool musician buddy. You know, you want to hang out with us, Bob, who works 9 to 5, you know? Hey, here's the pussy, you supply the drugs.
Kids of the mid-'80s, I think, were doing, you know, booze and Quaaludes and smoking pot for the most part. And some speed, too.
Regular salad.
The old cliche, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that's what it was. I mean, that's where that cliche came from. I mean, that was the 80s. The 80s was all about hedonism. I mean, how much can you do? You know, how long can you stay up? How many chicks can you have sex with? You know, that was the whole thing. It was like a contest, I mean, which I won regularly. You know, I mean, I would stay up partying, and my friends would leave the house. They'd come back a couple days later, and I'd still be at the same party. They're going, you still up? I'd be up for like 5-6 days. I mean, I'm not saying this, I'm not advocating this. You know, kids don't try this at home, I'm a professional. Our thing was drugs, you know, that's what screwed us up at one point, you know, I mean, women and drugs, man, that's the kiss of death to most rock bands, you know.
Come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your voice. We'll get wild, wild, wild.
1991 saw the birth of a new musical form, grunge. And whether it was time for change or too much of a good thing, it also marked the end of hair rock's phenomenal popularity.
It couldn't last forever, you know, because LA rock scene has been going on since the mid-'60s. The Beach Boys and The Doors and Van Halen and all these great bands. But, you know, after 90, the Strip was gone. That was it. You know, but when it lasted, man, it was the shit.
Come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your voice. We'll get wild, wild, wild.
A band, you know, you're closer than brothers and it's more than a marriage. There's just stuff you share. I mean, the struggling, the starving, the you know, okay, we're gonna make it, man. Everybody's like, it was all for one for all. I mean, it was really a band of brothers, man. Really, I mean, because you know, you're all trying for the same goal. You know, when you actually succeed at that, there's a bond there that I think you never get with anyone else. You know, it keeps you, you know, it keeps you strong. You remember those good times, and I think that kind of holds you together.
Back in the 80s, heavy metal was the biggest genre of music selling.
It was awesome. It was just the greatest time that I'd ever experienced in music. I don't think anything like that will ever happen again. It was a movement.
Come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your voice. We'll get wild, wild, wild.
That whole scene was magical. Jack Russell, Janie Lane, Bret Michaels, Stevie Rochelle, Jizzy Pearl, Tracy Guns. We all came from, you know, that little sect, that little era.
Anything that you wanted to be, you could be. You were the fantasy.
Rock and roll is supposed to be a spontaneous, real thing that is alternative to a big money hustle. And I think where it lost it, where it fell apart, is it just turned into a big money machine.
Come on, feel the noise. Girls, rock your voice. Let's get wild, wild, wild.
It's a moment frozen in time in our culture that will never live again, just like the Wild West. It was the wild, wild Sunset Strip, man, and thanks to the fans and the music and everything else that's kept it going, it will live on.
I don't know if it was the golden age or if it was just at that particular time we captured some kind of lightning in a bottle.
The last great music era, I think, of like live music.
Rock and
It's
roll,
like
yeah.
Really,
The
even
last
like
great
the
rock and
Seattle
roll era.
scene, but there was nothing like the 80s of the rock. It was a special time.
Metal rock of the 80s was the sound of a generation. It spoke a language that could be understood by all, everywhere. It will never be lost. It will never be mourned. Its legacy is to be rediscovered and treasured again and again.